Welcome back to Golden Rule Radio. We're going to start this week's show with a list of some of the things that are going on in the market that are significant. So let's kick it off, Dory.
You know, a lot of new territory, if you will, in a lot of the areas of investment. The Dow Jones Industrial Average crossed the 26,000 mark, up over 300 today. Bitcoin fell below 10,000. We saw that. Palladium's at the highest ever, 1,110. It hit that point, but it is being outperformed finally by platinum. That ratio's narrowed down to 0.9 to 1, and platinum's about 2% better so far this year. Oil, look at oil. It's over $64 a barrel, the U.S. dollar at a 3-year low, under the 91 figure. And finally, I'm going to throw this one at Miles here. Gold hit his 1343 mark, and that's the first time we've seen that since August of last year. But before that, really, that's tough territory to break through. And if we do that, that'll be the first time since the bear market kind of resumed in 2013.
So going back through that list, I mean, starting with the Dow, both industrials and transports up a little over 5% since the beginning of January, although that is not quite what we've seen in some of the metals. Certainly platinum is our big winner so far this year, and I think that comes back to what we've been talking about the last couple months, not just paying attention to the price of things, but the relative price of things, platinum versus palladium, gold versus silver. You know, gold is up, I think, about 6 or 7%, silver's up 9%. So we're starting to see silver push up against gold, just like we're seeing platinum push up against palladium.
Actually, a fascinating aspect of the platinum market as well is the fact that supplies are starting to get very pinched. And we're starting to see some delays in delivery, not significant, but for the first time, you know, all eyes and focus has been on palladium because of its performance. But we as a firm have been pushing everybody towards the platinum as palladium has reached this top. And we have gone through so much platinum in the markets that it's tough to find nationally.
Well, and it's also tough to find it internationally. I mean, there's really only 2 places in the world that you can get either of those 2 metals, South Africa and Russia.
We may be missing a few things that should be highlights on that list, but we're going to keep talking about gold because we are at a crucial point right now. And I think, Miles, I'll let you run with that because you called the 1343 level. This level where we are right around here, 1340, 1330, this is where gold rallied into this range right around, I think it peaked at 1337 on election day that night, where gold was really rallying 4 or 5% up. The Dow and the stock market was down. This is the same range where we are with gold around 1337. This is a crucial level with gold. So with the dollar breaking down to a new low, I think we've got wind behind the sails still with gold moving up into the 1400s. But Miles?
Sure. I think short term, we should continue to see a little bit of a pullback here. You've got some fib levels around 1320 down at 1303, and then obviously below 13 if we get there. I think 1303 is probably our most reasonable stopping point on the downside. However, it could not go down there. You know, we could just continue to see strength. I mean, we called that 1343 off of past levels. I know Robert's next level on the chart was the previous high, 1375. I'm still calling for a close this year, somewhere in the mid 1400s, and that's just assuming normal trading. You know, we get a breakdown in the Dow, we get massive jumps in interest rates, we get some problems overseas in China, say downgrading the value of our currency, and we could see some of that stuff change and gold really take off from here.
I think from a fundamental standpoint, too, that's supportive of breaking above the 1343. I think we do take a little bit of a pause here. I don't like it when it's going vertically, unchallenged, unchecked. We do need a little bit of a breather. I do believe, though, that in the first quarter of 2018, we will pass that key figure, Robert, and go and flirt with 1373 and hopefully 1400.
Yep. That next ceiling, again, to reiterate, 1373, 75, that's the previous high. Then psychologically 1400. And then I think 1430 is where you're going to have a ceiling. So we've got another $100 here with gold. Anybody want $100 free money laying around?
Silver made a second touch into the 1740 range. We were back there in November. We set that back in like October initially. So we're up there again, bounced off of it. Again, I still think that silver is the sleeping giant of the metals market. We certainly saw that back in the 2009, 10, 11 run, I think gold went from 650 to 1900. That's a heck of a move. Silver went from 9 to almost 50. So we're looking at the same ratios now in the 70-75 range. We've harped on silver for a while. We've already started showing how platinum is just beginning to make those moves against palladium. I think silver is going to start making those moves against gold, and I definitely think new investment money should be looking that direction.
The big news, though, that I think is going unnoticed by a lot of the financial media is the dollar index. The dollar is breaking down. It broke down below its previous low. It barely has held this last couple of days above 90. The dollar is going lower, even if we see it rally from some level in here. But I think you have, it's around 85 was where the next level of support is. That's 5 points away. That pushes gold up big time. Probably pushes the euro and some of these other pairs up in the currency markets. But dollar's going to go lower, resume its water slide that it was on last year, like we told you at the beginning of last year. So back up a year, we were telling you, here's what the dollar's going to do. Here's what it's done. I think it's going to continue.
Well, I think oil is sort of telling us that too, right? The petrodollar is showing some weakness, and the value of a barrel of oil is going up measured against the U.S. dollar. Miles alluded to China downgrading U.S. currency to a triple B. That's huge, right? That means now you got to understand it starts at a triple A, double A, single A, and now has been downgraded below into the triple B range. That will add downward pressure onto the U.S. dollar, Robert.
We're now looking at the U.S. dollar touching into some levels that it set as a high back in 2009 and broke through back in 2014. So I think at this point, we're looking at lows we haven't seen in almost 4 years now.
And remember where it went when that happened. We saw it spiral all the way down to around 72 on the U.S. dollar index. That is a huge move. That's when gold did what you just described, roughly $700 to $1,900 an ounce.
I think we'd definitely be remiss not to mention a few political items showing up both here domestically this week with the missile crisis or potential missile crisis out in Hawaii, as well as the Olympics coming up in South Korea, and some relation there between North and South Korea, I think is worth paying attention to over the next couple months. But getting back to the Hawaii issue, obviously the accidental missile crisis notice that did get sent out did become a pretty big deal this week, but there's an interesting side note to that took place in Japan at the same time.
Yeah, the news network issued a missile alert as well, and it did retract it 5 minutes later, but that is significant news, and it's ominous, quite frankly, to me. We can laugh about it as some sort of accident or prank, but could it or could it not be a setup for a real life situation?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That is a good wake-up call, and the odds of that have to be pretty
slim. Very slim. Yeah, very. And here's the thing. The missile, obviously, the assumption is that it's coming from North Korea, right? We're in this newfound, going back to the Cold War kind of pressure where Americans used to live on a day-to-day basis with the fear of a nuclear strike of some sorts. Nobody wants to go back to those days, but North Korea is just one little piece of what you're alluding to, the political and the geopolitical stressors in the world. Look at Turkey now, talking about invading Syria to go after the Kurds in that region. That's going to upset Russia. That's going to upset the United States. Russia going against the Syrian rebels in Syria. China's aligning with Russia and with North Korea. You've got increased Iranian sanctions and internal protests going on in Iran, which is destabilizing that country. Is that the next country to see a leader toppled by influence from the West? Qatar and the United Arab Emirates are fighting over airspace. Saudi Arabia and Yemen are essentially at war, and you have the internal strife in the Saudi government. Then you've got the U.S. in Syria's situation. I mean, you guys, it's rampant. You have all these little skirmishes going on in these city parks, and pretty soon the bigger gang fight's going to break out.
Like trade wars, currency wars, those types of things. I think we're going to see that in our very near future. I read about China shutting down the Marriott's booking system for a little while because on the Marriott's page, they had recognized Tibet and Taiwan and Hong Kong as separate from China. So China took their their power and shut them down to operate for a little while. They did the same thing, I think, with Delta Airlines because of the same thing. And maybe they'll do this with this Apple report that it was in this news report I saw. But it's just this trade war going on, U.S. against China, China not having a whole lot more leverage, but to basically say, we're not going to allow your companies to operate here unless you're going to play by our rules. So interesting things going on in the world, not just with the geopolitical tension.
Robert, to me, this is something that we've been talking about really since the economic crisis started forming in 2007 and then really got running in 2008. And that is major crises in the world start from an economic standpoint.
Right.
The economic leads to the political, right? The political unrest, which we have obviously seen. We've seen obviously a Trump presidency in this period of time, but it's not just here. It's Brexit and all these other political turmoils that we saw in the world, and that leads to geopolitical. The geopolitical is what we're experiencing right now. Now, obviously, there's some crossover as we morph and transition from one phase to the next, but the next one is social unrest and war. That's when it's hitting Main Street throughout various countries in the United States, and to me, it all leads back to gold.
It does.
Yeah, so as always, we encourage everybody to keep their eye on the ball as we progress through a pretty cyclical pattern that we have seen play out through the years, through the decades.
Throughout world history.
Exactly. So thanks again for listening this week, everybody. If you like what you heard, please hit the subscribe button below and click the bell so you get notified when a new show comes up. Head on over to Twitter at ICA Gold. Swing by our website, McAlvanyICA.com. And as always, you can give us a call at 1-800-525-9556.
Thanks for listening. Have a great week.